Right.
Close your mouth. I need you to sit down. I need your help for a minute.
I didn't know I could take care of.
No. So we're gonna put, so remember, we didn't have a, we didn't post.
I'll do whatever you tell me to do, Bob.
Yeah. Oh, all right. See that? I dragged you over here for nothing. I could have used Alan.
Oh, you're like Alan Bowes.
No, but you were like, I can't come over here.
Oh,
I-
I
We're gonna talk about that later. We'll talk about that later, okay?
You do, okay, because I wasn't sure.
Whether we're gonna do something with it or not.
Should.
I think so.
Or you can just sit in the,
Well, do we have to do that?
yeah, it's just one thing and then we're gonna go forward, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know tonight. I'm doing great.
Let Nancy record since you're the host.
Oh.
What? I like this. I can see the TV from here. Is that all right?
Mr. Quick with the hands.
I don't think it's just to allow recording.
Oh. I don't see anything here.
The audience.
I don't know, usually, Tony does it, I'm not sure.
So if you make me the host, I can do it. And then I think you can actually sign out.
This?
Can't even get.
Okay, I just made you the host.
Okay.
Hold on. Don't sign out yet. No, not yet. Okay.
I get the back row. Closer to the outlet.
I think you got
I
it.
think you have to mute.
I thought I did.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Good, how are you? An I take one of these?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
You want the large format adult print?
Okay, let's see here.
By mistake.
I read one hand.
I'm gonna move this bit.
Yeah.
Like they came in the door. I was very here.
We have some copies of the plan.
That's all.
Are we set with the recording?
Yes, we're all
I
good.
think it's on.
So I just gonna do this. Tanner said he can't make it. Something came up last minute.
I saw it.
Okay, so we're gonna call this special meeting Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. It is now 6:03 PM. Sorry, the Planning and Zoning Commission. I didn't bring checklist with everybody, so we would just go around the room. Tony Bolduc, Chairman, Planning and Zoning.
Dana Smith, member for
Lisa Di Maria. Marion, stay. At least you remembered your.
Alan Perry.
All right, so I think so. Was everybody that showed up? So just need.
Tim Puyelli online.
All right, awesome.
Hey.
So we're just gonna set a public hearing for a text amendment concerning mixed-use buildings definition. That would be April 17th. Sorry, March. I'm off of March. All right, my bad. March 20th. Just need a motion.
Motion to set the text.
Awesome. Second,
Okay.
thank you. Everybody in favor? Them?
Approve.
Okay. Need a motion to adjourn the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
On to the ad hoc committee on the plan of conservation development. Rand, it's all you.
I'm sorry, I'm the chairman. Welcome. Formally, I think it is 6:04 unless it passed
Yep, 6:04.
6:04. We have various members here. So obviously you just heard the planning commission members and Carol wasn't a formal ad hoc. Oh, that's,
Sarah.
Sarah Connor
Yes.
is here.
Yes. we can say them.
And the rest of the informal committee, I guess, is not here. So Zoe is our planner and person who wrote most of the document. So she's going to present, and I guess if you have questions, people can ask. Yeah.
So we're just gonna get this set up and shared. Okay, you can just, we can just do it this way and we can scroll down, it's fine.
So,
Hi, thank you all for coming out tonight. Just a quick show of hands, how many of you were here for the first POCD meeting? Okay, and then how many of you, well, obviously the committee members, but how many of you, this is your first time here to kind of learn about and to ask questions about the POCD? Okay, so it's a pretty even split, awesome. So because of that, I did have a few slides at the beginning just to review a little bit about what the POCD is. So POCD is a plan of conservation and development. It's essentially a 10-year plan. We are required by the state of Connecticut to produce a 10-year plan every 10 years. There are certain things in state statute that every town and city across the state is required to consider. That list is here. I'm not going to go through everything, but as we continue to move forward, you can ask me questions and we can return to any slides that kind of pique your interest. And all of this is available online to view as well. So I can show you at the end where to find those documents online. Scroll. So one of the first things that this committee did, basically, so the Planning Commission in any municipality is in charge of organizing and taking leadership and then adopting the POCD. So this ad hoc committee is a subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Commission that also includes other key stakeholders from other commissions and agencies to write this document that you all have. Or if you don't have one, there are still copies to grab if you'd like. And one of the first things that this committee did was establish a vision for all the goals and actions that we set come back to this vision. So because we do have some folks that are new to this, at least the public meeting aspect of it, I'll read it to you quickly. So the Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission, in developing this update to the 2015 Plan of Conservation and Development, is guided by an interest in protecting and enhancing the community, cultural, historic, recreational, and natural resources of Deep River, and by the interest in promoting activities and policies that will create a more vibrant, diverse, welcoming, sustainable, and livable community. At the center of a multi-town region, including Essex and Chester, Deep River has long retained an informal, welcoming character that has fostered multiple generations of residents and businesses, as well as a wide variety of landscapes and opportunities. This plan seeks to reinforce and protect these critical opportunities, as well as enhance Deep River's position at the center of a multi-town area moving forward. We envision a Deep River that forms the economic, educational, housing, cultural, recreational, and civic hub of the Lower River Valley. So a quick overview of just how the POCD itself has been structured, because it's not all the same when you go town to town or even back each version every 10 years. They all can look a little different. The way that we structured this was that we first named key focus areas of the big umbrella topics that we wanted to make sure we looked at and how they pertain to our community. Then we set goals, and then below that, we've come up with a series of actions that can take goals that sometimes feel abstract to something that is more grounded in here are all the things that we can do to actually achieve these goals. And where we are in the process currently is we have a full working draft minus a conclusion and appendix, partially because I'm still working on them and partially because they will be shaped by more of the feedback we're getting still. And so that is to say that this is a living document and there are going to be updates based on continued feedback from committee members and continued feedback from community members. Especially when it comes to this final piece, because the last time we presented our focus areas and goals, but we did not present the nitty-gritty action level. So those are the ones where we're still kind of focusing in on what we're going to have in the final version of this draft. So here are the focus areas: municipal facilities and services, housing, transportation and infrastructure, economic development, natural resources and conservation, and climate change and resiliency. And so I have a few guiding questions that relate to questions we've spent this past year asking ourselves. But before we get to that point, I actually wanted to take a moment to do a little bit more of an interactive thing. We have maps on tables of both a bird's eye view of the town, as well as our zoning map with a legend that explains what each thing is. Although, unless you are entrenched in zoning, you probably don't know what some of those things mean, which means during this time, you can always come up and ask us, what is R80? But
Yeah, yes. Because
Oh, yeah, that
someone's gonna
too.
ask a property, I just want to be ready.
yeah, Tony will pull up the GIS just in case we want to dive into it, and then we'll go back. So before we get into kind of focus area related questions, I'm going to pull up a series of guiding questions that we can use to read kind of our thoughts on the maps themselves. And that will be collected as a way to get some more physical feedback from folks that either haven't submitted their ideas yet through the survey that went out a while ago when this kicked off, or since then via email to me. So if you scroll down one, so these are a bunch of questions that relate to the various focus areas. And we're going to take the next, what time is it? 12, like 20 minutes to write down our thoughts and also come up and ask me and committee members if you have any questions pertaining to anything specific in the POCD or in relationship to these questions. So I'll quickly go through them, and then we're going to actually get up and get moving a little bit, so it's not just sitting for an hour. So here's some of the questions to consider, but also you're not limited to these. Any thoughts that you have about what you care about and want to see? This is your town. This is the next 10 years. This is a guiding document that is used by people in the town and is connected to funding and how we structure our own regulations moving forward. So anything that you think is important, feel free to add. But here's some of the questions that we have. So what areas need attention in the next 10 years? And this could be physical areas, this could be focus areas. Is it economic development? Is it conservation? Whatever it is, you can incorporate that into your feedback. Where is appropriate for economic development? Where is new housing needed and what kind of housing? Where is appropriate for environmental conservation? And where are we facing natural hazard challenges like flooding? Even in the last 2 years, flooding has become an increased issue. So where are the areas that maybe have gotten worse? It's good to start thinking about that, and anecdotal experience is just as important as our FEMA map says. So. And here's some specific areas to consider for all of these things. Maybe it's you want to see more activity, maybe it's you want to see it preserved a certain way. So the Village District, the Harbor District, the Turnpike Industrial District, which you'll see CID on the legend for the zoning, the Platwood Park area, and so we are going to get up and start thinking, and do not feel pressure to put things right away. Part of the reason that I'm giving us 3 minutes is that you can come and ask us questions, read through, and really think. So, go for it. Yes.
Everybody in the audience here is showing up to see. Conservation development is really kind of a balance in that. But economic development, saying, but we have to balance out the conservation side. And we're matter of preserving, changing, about the environment, it's about the economy. And a lot of this, what we have in the report already is about kind of the details. But what has to come out in this is the passion of it. And if you had $1 to contribute to any area or issue associated with Deep River, this is a kind of place. I think it's unfortunate that everybody I see here, the other people that show up to the meeting all the time anyway. This should be an interactive ideas session. And so what you've seen in the report, it's kind of been sanitized. But I think there's an opportunity to challenge this committee with ideas that are inspirational, that are generational, and that are transformative. And we can stay the course. Let's stick it. And just create a report that touches all the bases. Here's an opportunity to represent your passion onto our plan that says, I'm deeply committed to the environment, to sustainability, to infrastructure, to housing, to our seniors, to our kids. And put that in the plan, because the plan of conservation and development is supposed to guide all of the decisions that the town makes towards regulations, policy, initiatives. And it's an incredible opportunity to influence the town plan. And I think this is something that's been missing, is the public input. We hear it all the time through Facebook, et cetera, but this should be the forum to put those ideas on the table. So.
If you also are inspired by the questions that I presented, I have more questions. So
Just maybe it might spur a couple questions. The population data. 2040, it's significant. It's a loaded question to or do we have any kind of estimate that would portray the possible affordable housing units that could be built in Deep River to in fact switch that? I know it's a loaded question but do we have any kind of idea that what's the possible?
We're talking about a projection of what can happen.
What could happen? The available land.
Every resident could put in an accessory living unit on their property. So we could in fact double the population, almost double the population of Deep River with accessory units. Old school, kind of providing a little apartment over your garage for your son or for your mother. So there's no limit to it. The issue that comes up is what's the preferred pattern of affordable housing development? Is it a matter of, what is kind of what has been traditionally provided by there's an opportunity to put in a inexpensive residence? Or is it a matter of we come in and we bulk build affordable housing units that are culturally different than the historic affordable housing in town? This was a small house surrounded by, a lawn and a garden. So, I think the answer is we got, because of some of the regulation changes, which was the as of right accessory, housing unit. I think we have infinite opportunity. But there's other patterns that can happen. I mean, if you look at, cluster development, that could happen, that creates a quality housing that, is similar to what the market rate housing is. Or it could be, a dense apartment building across the street. So this is a visioning session.
I was just gonna piggyback on that, if you don't mind, but that's, I think what Alan's also saying is it's also up to everyone. What do you want to see? We can tell you what we could do. What do you guys want to see? Do you want to see an apartment building? Do you want to see a high rise? Do you want to see smaller development with tighter lots? And, so this is the place you give us that input.
There's also a lot of rural housing that is like, I think a lot of folks think of either single family home or a high rise, and there's a lot of things in between.
Mhm.
These are housing. Because I made a lot of noise about the disparity between what we saw as a population projection based on our, basically, we don't have a lot of jobs here. We are in a job center, which will skew that. And they still wanted to put us up to 1.1%, which essentially means that we would need 100 units over the next 20 years by 2040, right? So about 15 years. So that's only a couple of years. And then they give us some examples of how that could be applied. And so what we've been doing, and for those who have heard this before, I actually want everybody to know that we've been looking to be sure that those regulations are in the POCD or into active regulations. Alan already referred to one, which is the ADUs, which we didn't have before. And there's a bill actually going through to make sure that that will also officially count towards our affordable housing. That bill hasn't gone through yet, but we're looking at incentives we can do in our community because a lot of homes already have ADUs and they just aren't reflected as affordable right now. But duplexes is the other one that they would really like to see do more with duplexes. Because that's what happens when they do the work for us to show us how to build those. They skew towards what they would like to see us do. But this is the opportunity for us to say, well, no, we feel we could reach that, a different way. Should it be new homes in an area? Should we develop an area? Should it be clusters? All these things. But the other big factor is that most of our community right now are people above the age of 50 that are living in 3-bedroom homes without children, right? That's gonna be me in 4 years. I got one leaving this fall. So that's already my neighbor who's trying to sell. That's my other 2 neighbors past her. And then there's some kids, and then there's 3 neighbors there. So all these homes are actually gonna be, I love my neighbors, but they aren't gonna be living there in 15 years. And though that skews the overall need because those units will be back on the market. And that ideally will affect our community in some more positive ways if younger families come in to rejuvenate our fire department, to rejuvenate the school system.
And I'll add to that that's something that's been present in our conversations and in the way that the plan is being written, because, Daniel makes a good point that when you have folks that are trying to sell their houses or are likely going to leave those larger houses and try to downsize, when we talk about smaller units, affordable units, that applies to folks who are trying to downsize as well, and don't want to leave the community entirely, and right now have very limited options.
And I see people nodding. I think we all have friends, neighbors that basically don't want the upkeep of putting on a new roof next year because maybe they're in their 70s or 80s, but they don't want to have to move, with their daughter in California or even move to Middletown or Old Saybrook. They want to stay in this community with their lives. So when we're looking at suggestions for housing, that's something to think about. Maybe it's just housing for current residents.
Yeah.
It's right size housing.
So housing for current residents, and what does that mean? How do we need more smaller units? Like what does that mean for everyone in this room and everyone that in the community? So
We could put like 4 apartments in here easy.
There you were saying.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. One of them does relate to housing, but so in the list of icons that you had in the one slide,
Mhm.
that we're supposed to fit the sticky notes into the boxes there. And by the way, this is great work that you guys have been doing. I've been watching from the sidelines over the last years. My question is this. So through ARPA funds, the town voted twice to put significant resources into history and heritage, corridor and tourism, which I'm supposed to help implement. Where does that fit into? And I don't see history and heritage in there. And then crossing over to housing, as we all know, the push everywhere to create affordable housing where we can. Is there any consideration? You know, we talk about what makes Deep River unique. Why would it draw more people here? Why would the people that are here be more proud of Deep River? A lot of it is because of our history and heritage. We do have a handful of 1700s houses and 1800s houses. I worry, because I've already seen it, that those are the ones that are going to get targeted to be torn down for affordable housing. And is there any consideration of trying to maintain our town's history and heritage and open spaces as we strive to build affordable housing?
Yes. There's not been a topic about, no bulldozers have been in any conversation. Nobody wants to bulldoze it, particularly since I just mentioned, we have a lot of units that are great units that people are enjoying now and will be, and, you know, families used them before the people that are living there now, and families could use them again later on. But it's all about identifying space. So if you could think of a space, what would go there? And so that's weighing back into the land conversation aside.
We can also mention that the previous plan of conservation development asked for a demolition delay for historic buildings. And we actually wrote that and submitted it to the Board of Selectmen. This was for the previous generation.
Yeah.
And it didn't go anywhere. So I think the goal is to do that again.
Yeah, I understand. And that's
Come up again.
It's been a big battle in Essex and other places that don't have any historic protection at all. Everybody thinks that there's such a thing, but there isn't.
Yes.
But just in a general question, if I was going to make comments, where would history and heritage fit in those icons there?
I thought we had something in.
Oh,
The entire, wherever it exists, right
Yeah,
now,
I-
everything.
It's the village or.
as we talk about rebuilding our brand and making it stronger and making people prouder of Deep River and why people would be attracted to this area, we know it's partially because of our incredible and still intact history and heritage. And again, a lot of funds have been designated towards that. I'm just wondering, because I want to know who I'm going to work with and where does it fit into these
So
icons? Because I don't see
That
it.
would fit, I would say, under multiple. We don't have it as its own thing, but it would be under conservation for one, but also under economic development and housing, I think in particular, as well as climate change and resiliency, just with different lenses. But I do understand your question about, yeah, whether,
It also fits under sustainability. If you really
Yeah.
want to go into that, because,
yeah,
you know, renovating or splitting a house into a duplex is actually more environmentally friendly than going and, you know, cutting a lot down and building a new house. So it does, it's a multifaceted piece. It is in here somewhere. I don't remember where we nailed.
I think it's mostly under economic development. Right now.
In the big write-up that we got before, which we read, and it does mention history and heritage and branding and pride in that. I just didn't see it represented in one of the icons. That was my only
Yeah.
comment.
Any other comments?
Sure. It's my first meeting, so.
Yeah.
Forgive me but, so I'm hearing like the housing requirement and I'm a little, it's jarring because I also saw the statistics about the decline. So I think, okay, it seems like we're trying to fix a supply problem. We actually have a demand problem. And I kind of agree with Jerry that it seems like, shouldn't the goal be make it an attractive place for people to come, young people? And then if we then have an excessive demand, then we can deal with the housing problem. But
There's a caveat to that. Ideally, that would be all right.
well,
Yeah.
I just have a couple more comments because, you know, we see other young couples like in Saybrook and, you know, Essex and stuff. And I think, okay, why are people moving there and not here? And some it's pride of the town. But, you know, it's like, look, they want to go sailing. They want to have a easy access to the waterfront. They want to have bike paths. They want to have, you know, stuff with their kids, parks and stuff like that. That's what they want. And so it seems to me maybe
I haven't been to any of these meetings, so you have to understand I'm coming in this a little without some of the history, but working on making it a more appealing place for young families could maybe address some of the issues that you guys are grappling with. Almost by natural, rather than kind of forcing a solution.
Well, I think the big caveat to that is that it comes back to the issue of unit turnover. So if no one, there are people even now that would love to buy a house in Deep River, but aren't because the houses are, those that maybe want to downsize and sell their house don't have anywhere else that they can go in town. So that's a big, one of the major gaps is that.
The other thing is, don't confuse like the overall housing market with affordable housing. And with affordable housing, the caveat is we have requirements that are put upon us.
Okay.
That nobody in this room, and right now there are 3 bills up in Hartford that want to take less power from this room. And then there's one bill that says that if we put anything in the POCD, and this is, it's actually aimed for some other communities that are much bigger than Deep River. That if we say, oh yeah, we want to build a cluster housing is a word that you use, then you have to do it. I don't think that bill's gonna go through.
Mhm.
You never know, right? But the big one that you would hear if you come to meetings is 380G. So if a developer were to come in and say, I want to put in a house that actually does not fit our heritage or historical or our look, but they are the property owners, make X percentage affordable 380G. We're done. It's finished right there. They can do it. We can't say no. We could affect the appearance at what we said. We can't paint it.
You can't set a,
Polka dot.
you can't set a zoning area for that. You can-
No,
They can do, they can do whatever they want.
No.
As long as there's residential allowed. If a resident, if any type of residence is permitted in the zone, then it is applicable for 830G.
You absolutely can create the zone for that, and you have to take the initiative to do it. Oh, you can't.
I just heard the opposite.
Yeah.
Well,
Thing is, if the town takes initiative to create affordable housing, we can determine where it goes.
Oh, we can.
Oh, well, yeah, no, but that's
Yeah,
not the
that-
same as
that's
830G.
The 830G means that the town doesn't take the initiative.
But we can't make an
meet their
830G. We
responsibility.
can't say, well, somebody comes in, it's.
The state will come in and allow somebody to do it that we haven't taken the initiative. So part of this is taking the initiative. If we want to create affordable housing, what's the character of it? It should be as good as the housing we have. Should change the culture of Deep River. So, but
I'm gonna just clarify that, just to make sure everybody understands. So if somebody comes with an 830G and you don't meet your state mandate for housing of 10% affordable, then a developer can come in and say, this is where I'm putting it, and you don't get a say. You get, you can say health and safety, and that's it.
The affordable is based on the value of the house, not the income of the.
No, it's based on income. So it's
So I'm surprised.
80% area median.
I'm surprised we don't meet that.
You would be.
Yes,
Deed restricted.
right,
Okay, guys, so the housing has to be, it's like
Designated.
designated.
right. And then,
So it's not income, meaning that's
No,
not
but-
population, it's that the housing. is-
So the income, and again, that's skewed because we have a lot of our communities on fixed income because they're no longer,
Right.
they're in retirement.
Right, exactly.
And so fixed incomes predominantly, if you did it right, are a little bit lower, right?
Sure.
So our, that's why you look, it's like, oh, it looks like Deep River's a poor town. No, not necessarily, but we do have a low medium income,
Right.
which then means that the affordable housing has to be set. And then there's increments, there's bills about this going on. Should it be at 80, 50, 30? It gets complex.
that's to go back to what Alan was saying, is that other towns do, they have incentivized zoning that says, look, if you go here, we'll let you do a lot of stuff, and you won't have to fight with us. So we can, as a town, come up and go say, look, we're gonna stick it all in Winthrop, just to pick on one area. We're gonna put all affordable housing right there, and we're really gonna incentivize it and, give tax breaks to anybody who will build
Yeah.
there. That way you can focus what you're doing. So that's kind of what he's.
Good idea.
So you can incentivize it and encourage it, but it's not the same as like.
Right.
At this point, unless we were at the 10%, if somebody came in and wanted to do it, they could. So,
If we did 2% in the next 2 years.
yeah, there is also a trigger mechanism for a moratorium.
Sorry, Chair was in front of you.
Oh, no, go ahead. I think share with before me.
Okay,
So I just wanted to respond to, I think, the second part of your question, which was that have kind of a demand problem of people wanting to come and live here. And we've had a lot of discussions about that. And I think there's a lot of detail in here and almost everything was with that thought in mind. Like, we want to make Deep River attractive to young people, attractive to businesses, attractive to recreation, to tourism. All of that is represented in here. So yes, housing is a big problem, but also I just want
So you're
to,
saying I didn't do my homework.
I'm saying you didn't do your
No,
homework, darling. It's in here.
It-
It's intended to be in here. And maybe maybe there are things we missed for sure, but
And I didn't.
that thought from the committee is definitely wasn't in here.
I was gonna say one other thing too, it comes to branding.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Deep River, and you've seen it, it was Scruffy and Proud, and it, it's changed its name in a million ways. I mean, again, it used to be Saybrook and now we're Deep River. So I think a lot of it, there's a ton of stuff to offer here if you really want to push on it. We have 50% of our town is open space, which creates tons of outdoor recreation, which is what drives most people to come to these places. But again, you also want to be a tourist destination. So this is, again, up to the entire town, not just up to a couple people. Alan, you say, at least look like you're gonna say something.
Well, we've gone through this tourism thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We may not have the attractions, but we can provide the infrastructure to support, because everybody in town goes to Essex and Chester, East Haddam, because we're central. So we could provide it could be our role, by the bed and breakfast or the hotels, whatever. And we might want to compete with Chester for boutique restaurants. The thing about the rivers, we have everything that you need. We got a grocery store, we've got a pharmacy store, hardware store, all that stuff. All that we need to live in town. Nobody understands that.
Well, that's a good.
Yeah, Deep River is pretty awesome. as
We
it
got
is.
the
So we just want to make it
fundamental
better.
livable.
Yeah, you're gonna go. I can see Mike.
So real quick, so back to affordable housing, you and I discussed this 6 months ago, maybe.
Yep.
And I was kind of shocked by this map. So we all get the concept that everybody's supposed to have 10% affordable housing, if that's the number.
Yep.
So you get, and we all know that if a developer comes in and they say they're going to do affordable housing, they basically get a free pass,
Yep.
basically.
Right.
So the problem is, that shocked me, is let's say we got a hunk of land, don't care where it is, there's a hunk of land. Developer comes in and says, I'm going to put into affordable housing, so all bets are off, I get to do this.
Mhm.
They're going to put in 20 units. 2 of them are going to be affordable housing.
Yep.
Which now doesn't give us 10% affordable housing. It actually wrecks our balance because we've added 18 more units of non-affordable housing.
That's a song that old Lime is singing and Lime is singing, because that's how math really works.
So is there a way to say to developers, you can come and take this property and do everything you want with, but it has to all be affordable housing?
Well, all right, but then it gets more complex, because he said, like Winthrop, for example, but the reality is developers probably aren't going to want to put anything out in Winthrop. Right, because of the cost of building, and they aren't going to get the incentives from Hartford or anywhere else, because they want to be near transit hubs, they need to be walking distance to the grocery store. So there are rules. I don't want to say rules,
Right.
but in order to get the incentive the developer wants, it makes it worth their while to have a X percent, the percentage that would get them in. They need to be closer to the village in our case, right?
Well, I think it also, the incentive question would be an important one, because part of it is just a matter of financial feasibility. Like, you might be able to build 20 units and have half market rate, half affordable, and maybe based on, cost, even just the last 5 years, the cost of everything to build anything has increased a lot. And so it might only be feasible to build 3 affordable units and have the other 17 at market rate.
I do understand from there.
But unless we have incentives in place that then kind of, or we are able to say, here's some resources for other kinds of tax credits. or whatever it is. But there's ways that the towns, whether it's just making people aware of other resources or deciding on what kind of incentives make sense for a municipality to help meet that gap. And then maybe it goes from 3 possible affordable units to 5 possible affordable units.
The
So,
the big cost is if it's not connected to the sewer, like, we've been fortunate enough through Rivercog, they put on some workshops and brought in developers and they've showed us what it costs them to build, what they want, because they want to be invited to an area, right? And essentially, if you have to put in whatever, I have engineers who could say what it's called, but if you have to put in your own institutional sewer for a facility like that, it automatically becomes price prohibitive at the price points of building right now.
I've always pushed on, there's a place in Clinton called Tidewater, but I think Tanner came up with a much better scenario for affordable housing, and it worked. It's on public water, but it's on septic systems. And so if you cross the East Haddam Bridge, on the right-hand side, you'll see a bunch of little houses that are kind of close to each other. And that would be perfect for affordable housing. That's another version of cluster housing where the property lines are removed and you're allowed to build multiple houses on one
They
property.
have water, so they can do septic for,
Right,
but it gets to be,
yes, there's a balancing act.
like,
They don't have
if the margins get so thin.
Spoke with that developer and had him up at the 3
One
corners
sec, I'm sorry.
that built those, all those apartments.
Yep.
I've spoken with him.
Yeah.
And he said they won't even look at an area or unless there's either sewer or water.
Yeah.
If-
No, that's what
That's it,
every
yeah.
developer that
So
we've had.
where are we going? We have to be in town.
Yeah.
Because that's where we have.
One second. Sorry, you got, nope. Okay.
East Haddam doesn't have water, it has septic.
Septic.
Yeah, that's, so, Mike, you also had something.
Well, I mean, we have a couple of hurdles that are out of our control. One is supply. 2 is the national average cost of houses is just beyond bringing young people in. And then the other big hurdle we have is we have the highest taxes in the area. So to lower our taxes, to make it more attractive to younger families. I mean, I think we need to address the economic part of this equation to bring in more money, because we can't keep taxing the residents to make it keep going up, because that's just not gonna work.
Yeah.
So we have to draw income
Skipping around.
from new businesses, so we can increase the tax rate. So
It is that balancing act there, because the new business requires new infrastructure. The cost of new infrastructure because of capacities is you're building infrastructure. That's incredibly costly.
just a little bit more what you're doing now.
I think the best thing to look at is, kind of the Halls Road project over in Old Line, where they're saying it's like, well, you know what, we're gonna meet our needs, we're gonna get a tax revenue by putting in new businesses, we're gonna solve the housing thing by putting in apartments above. But you're creating you're doing that through development. Cost of development is far more costly than existing housing stock. Right? Or, business frontage, et cetera. So if you want to go on, and that's why I say it's a balance between conservation and development. So I'm with the development side for EDC. The cost to build those things is disproportionate to the cost of the existing stock. Then when you put in substantially more development, you have the infrastructure that you need to support it, which the citizens are going to bear through normal tax structure. Yes, a new business will pick up some of it, but everybody else who's been living here is also going to bear the cost of the new infrastructure and a replacement of infrastructure. And probably the most obvious one is like the transfer station. Is that you can't replace it with just another hole in the ground. We don't move it to the next town. We don't move it to Ohio. We're probably gonna have to, it's a bigger issue for the next generation because it's incredibly expensive, not today, but in 20 years, because all of those facilities, that resource of putting our trash is gone, it's used up. So, we can defer that by saying, okay, we had some tax revenue for, the next 5 or 10 years. It does nothing for, sustaining what we have. So it's complicated.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because another one is the sewer. And if you add multiple more and more houses to that, we still have to replace the pipes that are in the ground at some point, whatever the processing facility is up there. I know it's new. I mean, 1980 is really new, in the long term. So, but it's not. I mean, there's still infrastructure in the ground and drainage. I mean, that all has to be done too. And that
Is the
comes out.
capacity of our sewer system
Yeah.
available to Chester and Essex and the next development that needs capacity. So it is a matter of being,
It's a balance, but as we add
Scrolling around.
young families,
Yeah.
child in, it costs us what, 20,000 a year? Ballpark. So again, that,
I got kids and they ask me more than.
That's balance, yeah. We can try to control the taxes to invite families, but then every family, which we want, right? But then it boosts it back up. It's
Yes, it's a good question, right? So when I lived out in Illinois, right, town next to us, they made their decision, said, you know what? We're not gonna try to go after businesses. They said, we're just gonna be a bedroom community. And that's what they focused on. Won't be, i.e. everybody just lives here and then, got a grocery store and that, but they weren't chasing businesses, right? That was their vision. That's what they did. And they worked out for them. Town I lived in, lucky enough, we had a big nuclear power plant, so tax base was not an issue. Right? But you go to the next town over, in the other direction. They're about the size of Deep River, and they're, we need to bring some businesses to help with the tax base, Because they didn't want to go to the bedroom community model, that wasn't what they wanted, so I think that's where we're at. What is the vision for our
it is happening.
town, and then how do we?
Some of the neighboring towns think that it might be an opportunity for them with climate migration from Florida, that, maybe they'd be the new villages. And I don't want to start saying names and getting everybody riled up, but some towns very close to us think that would solve their tax issue with the school system. Because everybody coming in would be seen, basically, they want to rotate, which then would mean that, like, well, who's going to provide services for that demographic, right? But
It's not necessarily that we have to build more infrastructure. There's a lot of empty buildings that we could focus on, and incentivize, and just
And
occupy.
everybody says we're really good at that, by the way. I gotta say, when we have these conversations, it makes it sound like there's something wrong with our town. Deep River is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And when I go to these housing and planning meetings, they talk about the piano works. They talk about, other things that we've done that everybody else, sure, they may have it now, but we were the ones to do it first. And we just don't want to have to double everybody's taxes to do the next thing. That's all. I mean, that's why the POCD comes in. This is the plan. And that's, so back to, like, what would you like to see? You could write it down. And, we'll look at it, lean that way.
So Gary, you saying that the housing authority shouldn't be focusing on building new structures, in speculation, but should be focusing on filling existing structures which are viable.
I think every downtown building that has a second and third story should be focused.
So, all of the businesses on Main Street, before we build anything, fill those, provide some incentive to fill those second floor apartments to give some vitality to the Main Street.
The majority of them are filled.
How about the plastic works building or whatever?
Street.
Somebody purchased that.
Did somebody purchase it?
Yeah.
'Cause that's been coming up in all the meetings as well, because that could be an
Has
opportunity.
it actually gone through yet?
No.
No, so.
I tried.
It's a closed, yeah.
I thought he closed on that. Not yet.
No,
Okay. So we should pull him out of town, beat him and take it over? Is that what we're after?
He's still fighting in Chester, isn't
Yeah.
do we know the intent?
he? Who took the tour besides me?
yeah, I did.
Carol, tell you.
He was planning on some, commercial, industrial kind of spaces on the bottom that he would cut to suit. So if
Yeah.
you wanted a smaller area for,
Yoga studio.
yoga studio, but like little factory area or
Multiple.
something like that. And then on the upper floors or on the side of the building that has the 3 stories, he was gonna put some of those, what do they call, work and live,
Artists, yeah,
Like,
artists.
work live kind of units.
Yeah.
So they would be very like contemporary looking condos, not luxury. You'd have exposed piping and that sort of thing. It'd be that kind of look. So he's very enthused when we walked around with him.
Yeah, I think that might have fallen through. But it is a big, that factory is a, has been one of the sites that has been of conversation. Up until December, it was the site of the plastic manufacturing. So that base of the factory was active manufacturing up until, 3 months
Talking
ago.
about it being manufactured.
Yeah, and so that was
Smaller.
gonna still be manufacturing in this vision, and then the currently those, I think it's actually 4 stories, 3, whatever they are, those have been really empty. So that's a lot of unused space that would be great.
Right, is that allowed by our zoning regulations?
Yeah.
I don't know, you guys know, but so right now, the way that the zones are split, and I do think that this should be on the list for the Planning and Zoning Commission, is the village district, the way that it's split right now, where Piano Works is, allows for general multi-unit. And then you turn the corner and that only allows for multi-unit if it's age restricted.
So I want to back up because I feel like Dan and Ellen kind of went over this and kind of pushed on what we're gonna, so we actually had this on our agenda is to, so our current zoning regulations only allow for mixed use for 2 apartments upstairs. So
Maximum.
maximum. So let's say you're Walgreens. I know it's not a perfect scenario, but that footprint can definitely have more than 2 units up there. So that's the regulation change that you kind of heard us blabbing about. Is to kind of fix that. So there could be more units up there. 2 units just doesn't seem right. I mean, and for a building that size, so.
Yeah, there's several scenarios that have emerged
Right.
recently where it doesn't make sense, both just from like a square footage standpoint, like, and from comes back down to what's financially feasible, so.
So that's the next part of this, is to go through the zoning regs and say, look, these are a lot of mistakes in here. Where can we fix it to do this where it, again, it doesn't take away from the town?
Well, it's not just zoning regulations.
Right.
It's a POCD,
Yes.
because if we want to move in a direction of mixed use in an industrial area, then it should be coming from the public. If the zoning changed our regulations without that being stated by the public, we should be held accountable. We can't be changing our regulations because a small committee wants it to. We need public input. So that's what this is about.
Yeah, that's not what I was saying. I was saying the regulation change that you guys just discussed. Was on it.
Yeah.
Legal comment? Please. All right.
I just, you schedule it at dinner time.
Yeah.
We've been at it almost an hour and we haven't had an opportunity to provide any input, so well, that's planned.
Oh,
No, we're waiting for input.
we started getting questions, so we just were answering.
Stand.
Yeah, do you want to stand?
No, I need to.
Oh. Well, I have,
So is there an opportunity to provide comment back after this?
Mhm.
meeting?
yeah, so I have my email address. And I can also, there are physical copies that if anybody wanted to write notes on it and drop it back off to the town hall. Yeah.
And I was just say, please, anytime you want to stand up and write, we weren't trying to block you from that. Just please get up, put something on on a sticky, throw it on there. I think Alan's initiative was writing a lot of it down.
Were we supposed to voice what we were putting there or just?
No, just stand up and do it. Yeah, no, I just, it felt like people were more comfortable sitting and asking us questions, so I was just rolling with it.
Either way, if you want to write it on, if you want to write it down there, if you want to express it and ask questions.
It's great if you post it though, because I think it opens up to, and gives other people's ideas. So
Yeah.
All right, then I'll tell you, all the things I put on there all have to do with recreation and, Flatwood Park. Great idea, always feels dirty and small and silty and loud. Never took my kids there a couple of times when they were little and they said, can we go to Cedar Lake instead? Or the beach in Saybrook. And Deep River Landing, beautiful, feels underutilized, really hard on weekends to get in and out. Try to get your boat in and out, like there's no place for a kayak really because of all the other boats. And then there's that sort of a beach that people kind of go to, like, could that be made into some kind of safe swimming area? I don't know. Pratt Cove, there's always people standing on the road, fishing in the way. Like, is there a way to make a safe place for people to fish? And trying to get your kayak there also is really not, like, everything feels uninviting. And it's so wonderful things, but it's always, and I'm not saying that I'm lazy, but it's always like harder to make it happen. You know, so things like that. And the fact that we don't, at least I don't feel like we have a park, an actual park, where with like walkways and trees and benches and stuff. Like, I mean, you know, we're from the city, so Central Park is what I think of, but like Devitt Field is usually just barren, except for the muster and a couple of things during the year, but mostly you go there and there's nothing. And there's no place to sit. There's no, it's not like park-like. And there doesn't feel like there's a communal area. We actually go to the cemetery. That's the closest we have to like trees and walking around leaves. And
The cemetery is our best.
that's,
It really is.
that's our, park, the cemetery.
So actually is.
It's gorgeous, but, you know,
They have
so.
a fountain.
But I agree, like Platwood Park seems barren. The few places, I mean, we're on a river and there's lots of water points, but they're not welcoming. But yeah, the kayak launch is horrible and it's really hard to get a kayak in there. So yeah, there's just some things we could probably do to make our natural attributes more welcoming. Because we do have, I agree, I'm a huge fan of Deep River. We have everything and more that the other towns have. They often do a better job, you know, singing about it. But we have everything people need, but we also have phenomenal countryside. Most people think of Deep River as only downtown. They don't realize we have horse farms. We have amazing places.
The trails, the hiking
The hiking trails are unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yep, I think we just, I mean, that's part of the project I'm working on, just trying to let people
Parking
know
for these
more
places.
about what we have. So we're not down on Deep River. We're like, let's take the things that are,
Well, you mentioned the horse and that obviously that's something that's been discussed in the meetings, like how do we lean into that? And we actually have more horses in the town than any neighboring town. But we don't have any festival or celebration or rodeo. I mean, I don't know what horse, I'm not a
Right.
horse person,
Oh, yeah.
but there's all kinds of opportunities.
yeah.
I agree with everything they said,
Yeah.
by the way. As I agree with everything they said. It's basically, we have all this stuff and somehow it's not inviting.
We don't
Right.
tie it
And
together.
it's not tied to, yes, it's not tied
It needs to
together.
be tied together.
And I feel like we could do some of the things that Jenny said and make them a more inviting environment. That's back to the demand thing. I think you'll get more demand because you're like, oh, people want to come here. I agree with you.
You know, one of the biggest,
Well, so I think they should be tied together, but I think, to Jenny's point, I think each thing is independently. God, it's like so
Challenging.
close to being awesome.
Yeah.
But it's just not, and I can't be, I actually don't. have a specific
You don't make it-
why they're
you don't
not,
make it
but
too
there's not.
Right, no, I agree, that there's always either too hard to park or too hard to get here, or it's
Yes.
just like the road.
Yes,
Everything's,
Give me one second.
well, you have
Yes.
all this space, but when you get there, it's a little tight entrance.
yes.
If there's anybody online too, if you want to jump in, just, speak up and I'll try and calm everybody down so you guys can get through, because I know there's a couple of you online still.
So I'll ask a specific, because I'm on the WPCA board. And I know this is before my time, we put in a new sewer system down to and they're saying, oh, businesses want to have that. And I'm like, well, was there down to the waterfront side? Was there a vision? Okay, well, we obviously decided to spend a crap load of, sorry for the money to put that sewer system down to the waterway. And obviously that would be appealing for people with, I'm just gonna hold this, right? But basically for a business, you're near the water and it's got a sewer system, is that ever been considered? I guess that probably people would freak out, but I mean zoning for that to enable someone, a business near the water that have the view, bring people in, blah, blah, blah. No, is that not enough? You're not getting any nod.
All these things are talked about,
I'm
yeah.
not getting any nod.
No,
That's fine.
but it's a question.
Well, the Lace Factory and Mount St. John's are both on the sewer.
Well, one of those-
On the sewer.
that's a new sewer that we put down that street.
Newest.
New, not only, right, it's like not that long, not that old.
But yeah, we were just looking
That
at those
was
maps
because of-
recently.
There was a problem with
Oh, is that,
drainage.
that's what it was
and-
for. Okay,
Yeah.
so it was
A
for
major-
environmental, not because of the development. But certainly that would be a great opportunity for a business. They could be on the water, they can be on, or at least near the water.
And again, that's a balance too, because we have, we have residents down there that want to maintain
the residents.
the residential, but that is, even for those of us who live in Winthrop, that's our landing too, right? So it's a balance of getting those things together. But that's something that we put, if you have an idea for a business that we should be bringing in, put it here. I don't know, it's not zoning,
But
you would filter back to EDC.
so the
because
idea
that's something
for
our EDC can be doing.
zone it in a way that enables a small business that may not be like a giant factory or something.
A kayak rental.
Kayak rental, perfect, that's an example. So I'm not coming up with the ideas, but something, kayak rental's a good idea that she.
No, but that is good to write.
It
write that
allows
down.
someone to put a business there that's not really a
Well,
problem.
specifically, the reason why it's important to write this down is then we put it in the P O C D. My sister's on her board back in her town in Michigan. They put down kayak rental. When the money came in a grant for kayak rental, they were able to get it. Because then so just for those that don't know, part of how a P O C D works is when we want to go get money or if money comes up, we get dibs. And it could be kayak, it could be a bike path is the big one.
I get a bike path, awesome down there, bike path down there would be awesome.
So actually, the zoning was changed to do
Oh,
something.
so that's.
And they've actually just recently came back and kind of asked the question if we would consider just switching to all residential. And so we haven't gone anywhere with that, but one of the owners has asked that.
No, the owner doesn't want it to be a mixed.
Right, it is at the moment, and they had originally asked for that, and I think, before I got on the commission, they had changed the zoning regulations to allow, like small shops and things,
What condition are you talking about?
at least factory. Because the other ones is resident.
Keep out the competition.
And so they've come back now and said, well, we would like to change it the other way. And that's kind of what Alan's getting as we can't just constantly go, oh, well, you want it, let's change it. Oh, you want it, you want something else now, we'll change it back. So there has to be a long-term plan, and that's what the P O C D is. You had a question?
Years ago, when I first moved here, my neighbor was on the stone and he said to me, apparently behind Devitt's is a cove. The cove goes all the way up. And apparently at one time ships would go in there and land like they were all. So the concept was if you could open the cove up and then open that back end of Devitt's, you'd have entryway that way. And kayaks and boating could go in from that end rather than trying to get at the cove on Essex Street, which really is not. Maybe we use
Tracks?
excuse me?
No, those are.
Yeah, I guess there would be. I haven't been back there all the time.
DEP is a big obstacle.
Yeah, well, the street, the road going through our center of our town is the hugest obstacle. It's like the elephant. No one's mentioned it tonight, Michael. So how do you revert that traffic even for a block to make it more village-like? Can we put something in the road, even if it's different pavement or something to slow them down? This light is, we all talk about it all the time. But yet we haven't, do we put the electric onto the road so it doesn't look so close and everything, those kind of things.
I've done a bunch of that in Guilford, and it's so costly.
I know.
It should have been done that way to get,
It
like,
should
from the
have
get-go,
always
but
been done that
we're.
way. But yesterday,
we're doing
really,
it.
Something that several people have come to me and tried to talk to me about is that one of the largest tourist attractions in the state is the Essex Steam Train.
Yes.
Which spends more time in Deep River
That's
than
right.
it does in Essex. And in Deep River, they get out of the train, get on the boat, go up the river and come back.
Yep.
And yet there's no branding identity to Deep River whatsoever.
No easy way to walk to restaurants.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, no way to capture any of that
People
money.
that have come from the city where we used to live and been on the Essex Steam Train don't even realize they've been through Deep River and gone to Deep River Landing.
Right.
So we're kind of left out of the identity of that totally.
So Jonathan Kastner, who was part of the commission and who's been here for a very long time, said at one point in time, they actually had rented the old Sabre trolley, the one on the wheels, and they ran it for like a week. Was it a week that they ran it for? I can't remember now. And there was no draw. And I don't think, again, I think it goes back to.
They did what now?
It was, they had ran the,
Trolley that went into.
Oh,
town.
okay.
Where are they gonna go?
well, down, I mean, there's a little more now downtown,
Right.
right? I mean, you go to the Red House and that kind of thing. You can hit the brewery.
Transporting people.
So,
There you go.
I'm fine with it. I believe it would.
they need a list of places to go.
You put something down here that you didn't speak.
Oh, but I
to,
forgot
that's
what.
Pretty, I think very important is art,
Oh,
local
Yes.
arts, local artists, venues, which is starting to happen.
I know, I'm
organically.
part of Soma,
Right.
so.
But I think that's an important part of the conversation. It's been brought up at other meetings. But that's the type of thing that a lot of towns can't offer.
We probably have a more active arts community than Essex does,
Oh,
but
yeah.
no one knows it.
I mean, there's a pottery place over here too, not just the pick, not just music, it's art, there's dance, there's a lot of stuff here. Sorry, Casey, I didn't see you.
We're talking about putting together a steering committee for arts and culture under EDC as well. So something that's come to the table.
And I was just gonna say, our industrial zones are pretty rigid. On one hand, nobody wants to necessarily expand them.
Right.
But the one we have in the middle of town that has the Smith Wesson building, those regulations are very rigid. It doesn't allow a restaurant. Which you would think that that building would be great for a restaurant.
Yeah.
Pandemonium has to be very careful because their restaurant has to be more of a kind of a self-serve, you can grab something, but you can't really sit down and be served because it's in an industrial zone. And if we want to talk, as Alan says, about making changes, it has to be in our P O C D, or there has to be enough of people that really want to see that.
That's interesting, Mary. So did you actually, without reading it through, has it actually been addressed by you guys?
Not
A
really.
restaurant, it is its own.
I think it's been suggested that we sit down and look at that, and we were hoping that the Economic Development Commission could also look at it and make some suggestions.
Yeah.
It's easy to talk about things,
Right.
not so easy to come up with solutions.
Piano Works did it. Well, they don't have a restaurant, but.
They did
Certainly
house-
industrial.
I don't know how that happened. It
It's
was
an industrial
before-
building, but it's not an industrial zone.
Yeah.
So when talking.
Was it though? That's what I'm saying. I
Is
mean,
that-
was it?
Probably.
Was it originally
Yeah.
industrial?
Originally manufactured.
Oh, it was before zoning, wasn't it?
That one,
Yeah.
that predated.
There was no zoning.
Yeah, there was no zoning. Yeah.
There was no split on farms.
Why don't
It is.
zoning that?
Damn zoning.
I know, but
Yeah, I'd say that.
You do until something that's historical comes up that you don't want.
has anybody been to the Velvet Mills? Up in,
Saber.
no, it's
No, up in,
Stonington.
Yes.
It's Stonington.
A while ago.
Yeah, well, they took an old velvet factory
Very cool.
and made brooms, and it's like they have a farmer's market there, they have restaurants in there, you know, they sell space, you know, it's just a multi-use facility.
Bridge
that-
Street is perfect for the
Yeah.
amount of space that they have in there.
Right, that we could
Yeah,
take
artists
something
and-
like that, artists, yeah, a lot of artists.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know about it, I had to bring my sewing machine there, because they left from Safer.
It's a lot like the
Oh.
torpedo factory, which is
You know
the.
what I mean? Yeah,
It's a perfect way to gentrify
Exactly.
existing facility, repurpose it.
but it's crazy town on a Saturday morning when there's farm, they do a farmer's market all year round. So,
Discussion comes in, do we want to give up our industrial zones and eliminate the ability to manufacture, make stuff, whether it's small scale, large scale, you know, high tech or whatever, and move to the arts side? It's a
He was
huge
talking about
discussion,
doing
huge
it.
opportunity, so.
I might.
He was talking about all of it, small manufacturing, but many of them. So, and he used an example. So when somebody leaves, we're not faced with this, which was this massive empty building.
Right, I think he's more open to, he's developed the space into empty units and rent them out kind of thing. So yes, I think what he's saying is if somebody like that came in, he would be able.
They left some state of the art equipment that is.
I'm sure this has been discussed, but how about medical?
Yeah, it's one of the things we don't have.
Yeah.
Well, and
And-
then obviously it serves an aging population,
Yes.
you know, so it's good with the
Customers
demographics.
right here.
But, yeah, it's referring to business, it's sustainable.
Doctor.
I think that had come up when the building, I forgot which bank, was empty. And Angus, yeah, actually went after, Middletown Hospital and a couple, and they weren't interested. But yes, medical is something we could use.
I mean, it would be great where the.
And it's actually, it's a lot.
Where the cold offices would be perfect.
And I think, just from where I'm at, if we could develop some more small retail shop space.
Hmm.
Because we lost, Jess from Blissful Beauty to Essex because she just grew out of her space. I mean, she all the time was, do you know anywhere? Do you know anywhere? Do you know anywhere? She didn't want to leave, but obviously we start some great small businesses and then where do they go? So we don't want to lose them. So how do we figure that piece out?
I was gonna say, I always like the marketplace in Hartford also. It's a
Right.
bigger building, with tiny little
Right.
pieces. Lots of restaurants start out that way, go. Eventually, you know, some of them fail, but a lot of them stay.
I think if the elementary school went, you know, if something happens, which with regional, make it regional four, who's.
Perfect spot.
I feel bad for
It is.
Alan's knee.
It is such a great location in town
Yeah.
Yes.
where we could make it
Everything
multi-use. We could make apartments.
That trolley would work.
Exactly, the trolley,
Yes.
it could, we could do housing on top, you know, there's just so much. I'm not sure if anyone's aware, but I was told today, and I actually went upstairs, but, the building on the corners on the market,
Yeah, $1 million.
yeah.
Deep
So.
Which
River Ice?
No, where the,
No,
Haley Joe's
Joe's and Anchors on this.
Oh.
You know the space above?
I did just go up there today.
The third floor?
So, yes,
Yes.
empty, just stuff, but it's,
Is that the one that used to be a Mason?
yeah, and it's still dominantly. But that, like, I wish I knew, I'm gonna think about this, maybe I'll figure out like how they have to do this, but that renovated, I mean, it really, there's 7 apartments in there already.
That should be that show.
This space is.
It's a show, all the old glass.
problem is there-
Hold on, one second. You said 7?
That level.
Oh,
7
there's
units?
7 units?
That's what she told, Sage told me that.
The thing only has 3 lifted here.
Maybe it's 7 shooting stores.
Maybe there's 7,
Maybe includes-
oh, maybe with the stores, yeah.
Okay, okay.
7 rents, she said, 7 rents.
7 rent.
Oh, because I don't-
That changes this.
I did see 3, okay, but yeah, but the upstairs could be another couple at least, or small studio.
So
Did you get to go up there? She
yes,
said they were-
I spent a lot of time up there. The problem is, it's a very old structure. The corridors are extremely narrow, they're wood. You couldn't get a certificate of occupancy to get people up there, living up there and down. You'd have to radically change the
Well,
building.
you have to get a elevator in there. You have to put an elevator, a small elevator. Well, it's only.
I don't know about for dwellings, you can for a museum, you can get around it, yeah, it's
Yeah.
historic, but I don't know about,
cost
I don't know if you can have somebody living in a fire trap. Maybe you can, creative zone. I won't.
That's a conversation for the.
I mean, we need housing, so.
Zoning does not.
It's a beautiful place, a cool place, and yes. It's like a time machine.
It is. But if someone.
Street.
Well, I know it's an investment, you'll go,
So Miriam, you talked about some really cool things in the past few moments. Year-round farmers market. I know there's one up where kids live in Maine, and it's packed. People come from 100 miles away to utilize this facility. Point being, if you're saying that we're restricting ourselves because of zoning laws, how can we change that so that the EDC can market, be a little bit more flexible in their target markets to say, hey, look, we can do this in this space. Right now, you're saying that we can't. Is that correct?
We have to look at our zoning regs. And if the plan of conservation development has certain things suggested, then we have an easier time changing them. Because Alan is right. It's not spot zoning, but you don't want to just do it for Harry, but not Sally, you know, that type of thing.
But the PFCD is basically a guideline. It's not that we have to do everything in it the way that it's been.
Yeah.
That's right. But if we change our regulations, there should be public input to say, this is a direction that we would like to go. It's a long range planning vehicle that guides decisions.
It would be great to have a farmer's market at the land.
And the problem with, I was gonna say zoning in general, people are more anti. So if,
Maybe open to that.
It's true. Well, I think it would be awesome having lots of different. Over the wall.
Well, hold on, is there a parking problem? Because the town owns the landing, and if you could talk to the train station, who just cleared their parking lot, not that I want to bring that
I
up
think
now.
it's great to have a farmer's market.
Seems like there's plenty of parking.
Be beautiful.
Maybe
Yeah, I
that's
want
the
to do
conversation.
one.
Farmers.
Davidsfield.
We're not, we can't have one on Main Street. We have one right off from Cali Joe's and
I'm
Ice
just thinking.
that way.
Having the-
Because then
having the-
people could walk around and go to the store.
Right.
Distance. You know, because people go to Chester Park, it's a beautiful feel.
It's a charm.
And what we
really
have
cool spot,
is
and right on the corner too, like that
Which
intersection.
is its own feel.
We have, I mean, I think there is charm through the main street, but there are spots that are not charming and need help.
Yes,
More
absolutely.
And if it was as a whole, had the, you know, was all uniformly. charming, I think. Well, isn't there a committee that's supposed to review?
Design advisory.
Do they have any power to do it?
No, we have no power.
No, it's
How
advisory.
How do we get you this?
Put that in the POCD.
So
Has power.
at the outset of design advisory, it's advisory to planning and zoning in terms of a kind of a regulatory charter. Zoning cannot dictate aesthetics. So.
But can't they, if it's
You
like
can change something you recommend.
falling down building or, you know, it's a light.
A lot of towns have an
Well, like-
architectural review board, which is very different than the design advisory.
But when DAP came to create, the town used them and sent people say, hey, go to design advisory and present what you're doing for some guidance. It was a resource, not just, it didn't always wear the regulatory hat. It was a resource to say, hey, we're trying to do this. What's a way to do it? So Peter Howard was, he saw design advisory being like free architectural services. And it could be.
So it's not control, it's advice.
I think Dan would welcome that.
But that's also Gateway, it's the same thing, they're advisory, but they send us what like, these are what we think, because this is our purview, this is kind of what we know. And these are our recommendations, because a lot of them aren't what zoning can.
So maybe I missed, how do you shift from advisory to control? Or whatever,
The guidelines that you have.
yeah, it says
to
like,
enforce.
you can't have your garbage all over your lawn when it's looking. on
But that's
Main
a
Street.
slight ordinance.
And can we do that, or is that
There's actually one.
We
that's
have a
coming up.
Yeah.
coming up to pass, or it's coming?
It depends, it goes.
So,
through town.
yeah, it's
Absolutely
supposed to
valid.
be through
I
ordinance,
see.
which would be
Democracy.
a town vote.
Yeah, no, I,
It's also come up, like some of the Dunkin' Donuts and the Walgreens, they come into town and they have these planters and everything's nice. And then a few years later, they're not putting anything in the planters anymore. They're dead. And how do you regulate that? I don't know. I mean, it's
law.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes me crazy.
it's tricky.
But, you know, I grew up in Guilford, so, okay, so you know how OCD they are.
Yeah.
Everything. So they have a historical section.
Mhm.
And you can't do things. You have to have certain
Well, you
size
have to-
windows.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, can we do that here? Like, can we do it historical section with a certain year? Like, it has to go through, maybe anything from 1800 past, can't,
there's certain regulations
right?
and there's certain different types of districts. And people get confused between those. There is a local historic district. People in that district, it used to be 60%. I don't know what it is now.
There is that.
Had to vote in favor. And that had the teeth to do architectural review. So, yes.
We don't have a historic district. We have village districts, which have
Historical village.
a lower level of regulatory control, but
You go to Guilford.
it has some.
It's tough.
That exists in Deep River?
Design advisory in the village districts, yes.
But not
It
an
is a
historic.
requirement for a zoning application. It's not as stringent as a historic district and probably shouldn't be, but we have that mechanism in place.
Is there a layer on the map, the GIS town map, that can identify historically significant
There are zoning districts.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
historic.
no, historical,
parcels?
significant.
Society would give you a plaque.
Yeah,
for a house.
Good idea, Dan.
If we, I mean, it's creatable if we have a list.
We do have a partial list because I looked that up.
For historically significant,
Yes, somebody
Yeah.
started
Yeah,
that.
there's a.
And the Historical Society.
it's not on the
did that.
GIS though.
No.
Forget his name.
Who did that? It was,
The Historical Society did two of them. They were just cultural resources surveys. That's what they're called.
Right, and they identified all the buildings and when they were,
Mostly,
most of them, not every.
not all.
Right.
And they,
But who's the one who did it? There was,
all
yeah,
of a sudden, I forgot his
Mel
name.
Carney.
No, it wasn't.
oh,
No?
He did a lot of research. But no, and I can't remember, he was the vice president of the Historical Society.
Jeff
We're
Hostel.
talking about Jeff?
No, Jeff
He was the president.
was the president at that time.
Jeff started, we were in a conversation about finding the parcels that had the historic significance. And he was gonna use like, dig up postcards and images from the society, but I think he just lost steam and then,
There was actual two surveys that were done by outside architectural consultants. And when I say a book, you know, a type like this, and the copies are, I think, in the library, they should be, as well as, the Historical Society.
So
And Don Mulcarney did do a lot of research. And so a lot of his background was part of that, actually. They used it.
So my question would be, should we be pushing towards a carrot or a stick? Should there be restrictions on what you can do with historic properties, or should there be incentives?
So
And the-
when I was in Essex, something I tried to do when I was running the Ripton Museum. and Essex has zero historic anything. You could buy the Griswold Inn tomorrow and tear it down and no one could stop you. And we tried to say, what are the 100 structures in Essex that if any one of them was gone, would take away from what we have here? And we have those houses in Deep River too.
Absolutely.
And at least identify those and say, now, I don't know if we can make a law that you have to, that those are culturally historical and are significant to the community, you can't just tear them down. But at least if they're identified and someone comes in from out of town and buys it, and suddenly they're told, this is not a crap thing, this is part of our town's heritage.
Right.
The problem is when we tried to do that in Essex, you get property owners. I mean, literally, I had people put their finger in my chest and threaten me physically that I was destroying their rights as Americans, their private use of their property, and they should be able to do whatever they, and I get it. I get it. But, you know, there's only X amount of houses left that help define us as a Victorian era town. And once those are gone, it's easy to watch them go one at a time. It doesn't change our lives. But once they're all gone, we're just another,
Like the trees, they keep coming down.
right? Another thing I wanted to add, and I know this might be controversial, it's a little bit before my time at the Historical Society. The Historical Society would love, because we definitely need to generate some income, because we're not supported by the town, is we would love to have a farmer's market on our lawn. We would love to have craft shows, art festivals on our lawn. We would love to do that, but I know there's regulations that don't allow us to do it.
Yes, thank you.
But
Or
there's
right now, there's a lack of structure for festival events, which is another thing actually already on our list.
Anyway,
For
I'd love to talk about that because there's a piece of green
addressing
space
prior
in
to
the
our.
middle of the town that we're preserving for the town that could be used sometimes.
Yeah.
We have a farmer's market right across the street in the summer.
We did have a farmer's market
And it's
there.
kind of pathetic. You don't mind me saying.
Well, I think the way to change that is if we actually had an indoor space, I think the people that split their time between the two towns, I'm not gonna name names, would be here.
It has that magnificent farmer's market. I don't think
But
we
not in the
can.
winter time.
I
Part
don't-
of it is because they can close off their main strip.
So if we close off a side street.
That's the
If we just close the
Right.
street between Hallie Joe's and the ice
Right.
that goes
Right.
towards the school,
Yeah,
Great,
then
that's great.
it becomes
people
there.
could walk
And
in,
then maybe
still
the
walk down.
school lawn or something like that could truck.
But isn't the difference there, the part that they block off is not it's not a state road, and that's the problem.
right, that's what I'm saying. So
Right,
don't
yeah.
block off the
But
state.
the road in front of the
Take
grade, the
one that
elementary
goes in
school.
front of the elementary school, right up to it. So you
It's
come
just like
right up to the edge.
Essex can have a parade every weekend because they just don't let people go downtown. It's not a state where we have this in front.
Right, but our side street, could do it, and
Block access to.
right up to Main Street.
It's only.
You think so? You're getting all.
I think someone made a comment that maybe because Chester has a farmers market, like why would we compete? And which is not an invalid point. Maybe it's something, that idea, but not a farmer's, something else. We offer something different. And I don't have the idea of what it is, but it's not,
Yeah,
it's a
doesn't have to be a
good point.
weekend market. It could tie into the horseshoes.
I
and
mean,
make it
Yeah,
more-
I mean, that's another asset we have, right? How many people come to the horseshoe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's packed.
I mean, my father's written up in the New York Times for playing horseshoes. Come on. It's like-
So
It's
it's
crazy.
important. We have some
Yeah.
significant events in town that are, local.
I mean, the horseshoes, the muster,
The muster is huge.
Well,
It is, the best,
Usually with this
the best in the world of what that event is.
it's starting
And
to
we
fall,
underutilize it.
and I think we need to put some heat in that because it was a peak and then.
yeah, it's not like,
I think there
yeah.
needs to be
We
some.
have to bring back the Deep River Inn.
Oh, God.
I would-
Sorry, I'm sorry. I had a little stage yesterday there.
Nobody actually has this on the second page.
What?
The deeper brand.
For the
Well, maybe
2026,
St. John's.
The 250.
We do have the, what's coming, Carol, the guard, the special
We're
guard for,
opening,
yeah,
Booking into 2020.
and they've gotten a bunch of people. So I mean, you can expand it. We
Yeah.
can do it. And we have some contacts with them. They want to, but last year they had some issues with the town about some certain things that were going on. So we have to decide how much of part of the town we want the muster to be. So.
Set priorities.
What is the town?
Where we,
Well, the other thing too, I think, whoever's in leadership, it ebbs and flows, right? Sometimes very in, and I think it kind of it's dwindled a little bit. So, maybe somehow we can help support it, just like the food down there, there's like one thing, I'm like, I could have got you something,
I was just gonna mention that, like, a lot more food trucks would help that.
Can you imagine if they added this like food truck festival down there, like Eagle Five, right, at the muster?
Or the muster.
Yeah, you have ice cream at, 11 o'clock at night, which is great during the day, and then you have one thing option. So I think that's part of just the committee. It's overwhelming. So how do we help them?
Yeah.
Put more on the baseball field, say.
So instead of the muster being something for everyone,
Right.
maybe we need to move to 2 events.
No, I think we still have the muster. I think we have to call them up and say, hey, what can we do to help you make it bigger, better, and invest some extra help? Like, how do we they park at the historic, so you make some money on the cars. What else can we do, to maybe we get the roaster guy to go down there and do coffee? They're walking around in the morning, but there's only one place for them to have breakfast. How do we?
Nest has a food truck. Chris, does she go? Chris is hot dogs?
So because I think the people with our.
It
Is the
depends.
public attendance at the muster down, or is the number of bands down, which is a different cause?
A little
been steady for the last.
been steady, yeah. It's definitely down from
Which
20
was
years
studied, the
ago.
public or the bands?
The bands.
The number of bands? is the
Yeah,
same.
definitely. But again, you have to encourage kids to start playing, right?
That's the issue.
Every year.
The courts are having really hard time getting younger
Times.
people
So maybe, how do we make that happen in?
That's everything.
Right.
We don't have as many younger people.
We also don't have any kids.
I thought there were some ARPA funds that went towards a music festival.
That's kind of important to say, because you could say, let's make the muster kid friendly, but maybe the kids need a music festival and a music arts area and a venue. So that you're not changing the muster to accommodate
Yeah, we
next
never changed the
generation, but
muster.
creating another event that makes Deep River a destination twice a year. Because there was funds in that direction, there was an initiative, there's other things that are happening.
I think we should just brainstorm some events, because I went to the tractor parade down in Chester the other day, and I don't know how long they've been doing it, but if you could have an open container.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's a whole different feel.
you know, they had to dial that back too, because
Yeah.
it was a tractor parade, then it was ice sculpture, and it was like.
Really
this and that. And it got so big that the locals couldn't go.
Yep.
And so now it's not advertised.
And it was
but
gonna
it's
cost
a
them
destination. And-
$45,000 in police coverage because it got so big.
Wow, but
So that was the end of it.
It was the Eagle Festival. They called it
Yes.
for a while.
And then Essex had, that's the other thing we don't talk about anymore, but why don't we have the Eagles thing? Remember years ago, the Eagles, you start in Essex, Deep River would have a spot that you could go and you literally drove. I mean, and some of this, I think we have to think is that we're a river valley, you know, and we have to work with each other to enhance. We are the core.
I think,
You know, we are the
I think
heart
what
of
we're
it.
doing is a real draw.
And I think that that's what we have to,
what did you say? You
The
said
core.
the core of a.
of the river valley.
River Valley.
Yeah, we're not, you know, we have to all work together. Sometimes that's hard for others, I know.
Yep.
But yeah, I think most of you know me, I sell advertising for the Valley Courier too. I do that, but, so I'm out all the time in the area,
I don't know. I think,
constantly talking to people.
I actually think that's changed a little bit. I think a lot of people are starting to work together. I think over the last few
Oh,
years.
they are, absolutely, but it's taken a while.
The idea that we're the River
Oh,
Valley
yeah.
core is that.
The heart, we're the heart.
That Essex and Chester and everybody else is at our disposal is a very different attitude than we're us trying to keep up with them.
Yes.
Is
Something just occurred to me about we're talking about the landing, you know, it's an incredible place. But you know, if you're not a boat owner there,
Yeah.
you don't particularly feel welcome.
Yeah.
You know, you feel like you're in the way of people launching their jet skis and things.
Yeah.
I know they tried a food truck there, but apparently didn't work. I wonder if anybody's ever thought of, okay, so in Essex, you've got two excursion vessels. You've got the Onrust and River Quest coming out of the River Museum. There's not a lot of parking at the River Museum.
Nope.
We've got Deep River Landing. Wouldn't it be great to have a sightseeing boat?
Becky Thatcher or something.
Becky Thatcher, no, but Becky Thatcher is not an open public. It's not, you have to have a train ticket. They have to buy in Essex.
Right.
You can't drive to Deep River and park there and get a ticket on a tour boat of the waterfront to Deep River or Eagles in the winter.
So would you make an arrangement
That much
with
parking at Deep River.
Essex Steam Train?
You could rent
Becky
it.
Thatcher is a
Also available
destination
on the.
in and of itself. They can
There's
drive to
also
the train,
another
but-
dinner boat down there, you know, that Essex Steam Train owns.
Yeah.
So that's launched
For
there.
Lady Catherine.
Yeah, small, but you know, I went on that like twice last year for events. So that's another thing that's the steam train. So how do we work with the steam train to do better with Deep River? And I mean,
That's
they
right.
come here for everything.
They got the train, but we got the boat captain.
Hey, yeah,
I mean, that's a valid point, and I feel like
let's open a little stands so they all walk over to or our local craft area. Imagine doing a little craft thing on a Saturday down there with all those.
Down there, don't.
No, they don't.
Oh, they don't want to.
but they're also afraid of what it used to be. They're dead set that this is gonna turn back into, and to quote them, it was a booze cruise. You would go there, and you'd get on the boat at 8 o'clock, and you'd come back at 11, throw all your empties in the street, get in your car and drive home wasted. And that went on for a very long time and we finally got under control. So I think a lot of it is.
Well, I think whatever happens with that's their spirit.
Sorry.
I've had mediums in here for the library, and trust me, things happen like that. But whatever happens with Mount St. John's, if that gets developed, they're gonna rip that hill off. it will be open, and that's gonna, just envision that open.
Oh, so beautiful.
So that our landing's gonna become open. So what can we do to make our beach larger, or maybe make more kayak, hookups like there used to be, where you could leave your kayak down there with a lockbox kind of thing? Imagine, love
Is
that.
that beach part of the take property, or is it actually part of the land?
I would say it's part of state property or,
Okay.
town.
State road.
So do we own the landing? Deep River?
the landing up to a,
Yeah, tracks.
and the railroad owns this little piece of the parking lot.
How about that little beach part?
The property.
State. So how do we take what we do own and maybe be able to put kayaks down there or more? I don't know.
You can't,
You have
so it's
access.
state property, are we allowed to, can we
Make it-
make a deal, right? Can we, has anyone gone to the state and says, we'd like to do this with this property? Is that?
I've talked to the state.
That beach would fit about.
Control the access. to the property.
I know.
Yeah, but
So.
not to lay out the sun, but I mean.
But we may not be able to show.
So we should kayaks.
Put a
May not be able to expand on it.
kayak rental on
Yeah.
that space.
So I
mean, that's a good
It's
idea.
been mentioned many times, but I have to do a shameless plug for my son.
There's a guy in town that
Whose,
does
whose Eagle Scout project is to put in a kayak rack for residents down at the land. It's good. I think he spoke to you.
Oh, is that what they're doing? That's
Great
cool.
idea.
That's
But,
awesome.
but I think there's also rentals to bring
It's
out the
not
people
done,
in.
it's pushing that idea,
Right.
but that's the
Come up
type
on
of
the
thing to
train and
say,
then you get your
is the
kayak
landing
up top.
for residents to enjoy access to the river? Or is it a commercial opportunity?
It could be both.
That's the big discussion.
Could be both.
Kind of happening. And maybe it can't be both.
Before this gets lost, you mentioned mooring
Yeah.
too. The expansion of the moorings has come up and I don't think we've done anything about it. I think everybody talks about it and there's availability to do it,
Right.
it just hasn't happened. So you said that and it kind of everybody, so I want to make sure that got out there.
Are the existing moorings full? Is it 100%?
Well, we have some public access ones, right?
Yes.
That was put in by EDC and so that we can have visitors.
Yeah.
But how do people find out about that?
Well, that one was listed on this website.
So, like,
Navigational site.
Stacy, how you're working out, ID everything? That the moorings that are, the town moorings, which should be on that map. Like, I can just envision this little map with all our little things that we have, right? And that becomes a piece of media that we hand out. Or we have a, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Is Zoe, is this format what you were looking for?
Oh, this was whatever.
Have we gone rogue,
format- Whatever format made sense for the group.
We
So,
have a lot of.
Is this input helpful?
absolutely.
Okay.
I think what I will do is when we close out, I am gonna give like 10 minutes for people to sit and write out some more thoughts. And I think we've all been aggressively taking notes too, but just to have a little bit of time to make sure that we collect all of like anything that is important. But we just wanted to give options and we wanted this to be more of a conversation because last time it was more of we still had a Q&A, but it was more of a formal presentation, whereas we wanted this one to really be a conversation, so.
Did a great job with the chair layout.
I greatly appreciate everybody's input and all these great ideas. And my first time I'm coming to one of these meetings. But what I see every day when I'm at work is seniors, I just want to get back to where we started. Seniors that can't afford the houses that they're in and there's nowhere for them to go. And it's getting worse every year.
It's really sad,
It's
actually.
so sad.
So having spoken with the housing authority, it used to be, before COVID, it was a 2-year wait. It's now a 7-year wait.
Yeah, it's not-
7 years. So, yeah.
Is that?
So there need to be 1-floor units that are, 1,000 square feet, call them cluster homes, call them whatever you want. Not townhomes, not elevator buildings. But because these people are independent, they're just can't, geez, I'm getting there.
And that counts to affordable housing. I mean,
Yeah.
age-restricted housing can be affordable housing.
Absolutely. There's a stigma with that affordable thing, but it's not. It's a relative term. And I think that's key. So I gotta write that down.
A retirement community, but not like one that people can't afford, like an affordable
Yeah.
retirement.
It can be.
Or over 55 community.
Like Kirtland Commons is now 7-year wait to get
Right.
one of those apartments.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
New information.
There's a little place in Centerbrook that's been there
Honestly,
forever.
there's demand.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's my mark.
I was gonna mention.
That's what
And
Bridge Street.
and then
should be.
medical will come
Yeah.
because we've got seniors living in the new.
Would it make sense to hang this up downstairs?
I was thinking that too. I think we can leave this out and if folks wanna, like, if there's a spot that you think would make sense to leave in, we could leave this out too. And if people wanna add their thoughts,
That's what I'm thinking.
they totally can.
We do another one so we don't.
Oh, yeah, we have more back there. I came prepared, Alan, don't worry.
And I would like to do this again, actually. I would, if you guys just put the word out for next month, first Wednesday of the month.
We will do this again.
We should do this again, but just so we can get more input, because it's great to have all you guys. Again, that was great. We're not getting huge input except for, again, I know you, this is your first time here. But there should be more people. This is not just this
Well, I
small
think
group.
when you actually want to do something, that's when you're going to get.
Yeah.
people who-
I'm gonna-
Opposition on the show.
I'm working on a dump. and
Do
then-
that.
No, I love all this constructive conversation. This is great.
We skirted Mount St. John's. We didn't
Yeah, we
say
haven't really
what
talked
it
about.
should be. And that's a big property. It could be housing. It's on sewer. It could be a commercial development. I'm not
It's
sure.
not residential, is it not?
Yeah,
It
right
is
now it
zoned
is. It's zoned residential, and I think it's R80, which is only single or two family. So, I mean, doesn't really make sense for the.
I mean, that might be a good place for cluster.
There was a plan that included walking trails.
That's actually, we have POC now is to, again, to look at the housing, visit each of those regulations.
Nope. Okay, but I mean, an interested party that wanted to do that.
We've had a lot of interested parties. that- I've talked to I've been here for almost a year and a half and I've had probably 4 or 5 different people inquire about that property in particular and still no actual.
I was doing math on it
So
recently.
inquiries, unfortunately don't actually equate to, until I see an application on my desk, it's not real.
I was gonna say, I got it in my head too, so.
The other thing I think we should all think about, because I think we all kind of live in different neighborhoods, but what do people come to our town for now? Like, I live on Essex Street and I can't tell you that there's not a day, especially in the summer, even a weekday, that bikes are not going by our house in the morning.
Vaping supplies.
We are a huge biking community. They come here and they park. I didn't hear what he said.
Vaping supplies.
Oh, yeah, well, that's gonna go. They wanted to advertise. I just forgot to call back. I'm sorry. I have that very particular.
We have people that come to walk.
There's 2 bikes that come down our road too.
Exactly. So if the bikers are coming, are we cyclists, sorry. Yeah, they're not.
Not, no biker gangs.
Went with the deep river.
So the cyclists are coming, they come a lot,
See?
and they go, I'm not sure where they're parking or whatever, but that's something that I think we should look into, and how do we embrace them and empower them with businesses or food?
So I do a thing called Tour de Lime every year.
Okay.
I'm gonna do that
You
where there's like 6 different things and it's big. And there's, they have, I don't know how many,
For their land.
how many food trucks?
Try 20,
No, maybe 10.
right,
And you pay and the money goes to pay for
whatever,
conservation.
yeah.
And it's huge. And I certainly think that, I do a really fun ride that goes over a Lime and then you take the ferry across. It's great fun, and I would imagine that other people would want to bike Essex, Chester out.
That's serious, though. That's like serious bikers. That's serious cyclists.
Cyclists.
It's very popular. They have family. They have the family around. They got kids.
Get any
I
bike.
could-
Oh, yeah, they do. I'm sorry, I forgot they have motorized bikes.
No, these are bicycles. Yeah. And this.
No, I bike a lot, but I have to find flatter terrain each year.
Oh, I see.
More and more.
No, because they have like 3 different ones. They have a long one for the serious bikers. They go up all like Joshua.
Yeah.
There's like a standard one. And it's very popular. They have the one that goes on trails now too, right? I don't know, because I didn't do that one. I just do.
But this does the tour de shore. It literally comes through our town.
Yeah.
And we don't advertise it.
We don't,
And there's another one too.
how do we,
But I mean, you start
how do you
in-
stop them in your town?
You're not stopping along.
They're not stopping, but they're coming to the community, they're biking through it, they're seeing what we have, and they'll come back. Yeah.
That's right.
So if you're going by, you see Red House and everybody's on the sidewalk with a taco or a margarita, they're like, that might be fun to go back to, right? We're branding and that's what we need to do more.
Yeah.
Hence
And not
the
to
map.
reiterate, but riding by the landing, I mean, it's an incredibly attractive location.
Exactly.
And, but plus you would, what draws you down there? No one would even know you're down there. But if you're on a bike and you go by, you go, wow, this place is unbelievable. That might lead to more stuff.
The couple of times I talked to some of the people who do the Tour de Shore, a lot of the times what they do outside the Tour de Shore, they'll come here in the morning for breakfast. So they get on their bike, they want to get that out of the way. So a lot of times they're stopping at breakfast places. So you're not gonna get them so much for lunch and dinner on their bikes. But yeah, let's just stop there. So you'll see it over there. I did want to jump back to Mount St. John's and probably be thrown out of town for this. But if anybody's ever been to Harkness Park, that would be my vision for that. And then I just have to put that out there because even though it doesn't go on the Tatchell the way you think it does, it is such a large attraction for that area.
Yeah. So we had one in the town I grew up in that was
Yeah.
like that. And it was such a draw and it
Yes.
was, it's almost like you could do a small,
Just says that.
this is grand thinking, but Tanglewoody or something like
Right,
that.
right.
Tanglewood, where you have people come and draws people for
I have to
concerts.
agree 100% because if I had my brothers, it'd be zoned institutional.
Yes.
So that is preserved for public use.
Yeah.
That it's a cultural.
It is the last
institution.
great open space.
I agree.
It's there to find the more. Right, there's no more than best like structure. It's commensurate and select.
Well, it's older than the rest. That's the best part. It's an older castle.
Could you get, someone, could you get someone, I don't know. any
And a town
people,
pool, you're right.
That's a huge.
No, it has a pool. Let's make a town pool in a park.
But could you
It's
get
in the,
like,
it's in the plan. It's actually in the plan, recreation. I
could you
don't
get
know how we'll
someone
get
like
there.
Senator Woodall, who's got like $100 million or whatever, somebody like that,
It's,
we could name it Blumenthal
I haven't
Park.
looked at the last
or whatever.
version of my thing to do today. and I ended up working on Friday.
Okay, I've been going, I've written down so many things and then taken things out and then put things in new places that I don't remember which things that.
I think it would generate
I
more
told you.
revenue
They're like,
We could go.
than,
It might have been.
than making
I
it.
told you 2 weeks ago I had that.
Yes.
Before you bring it up, I knew you were doing all that.
Randy.
Exactly.
What's your point?
It's a
I need your.
Yeah, it's
it turns out I
a
said,
fall
I'm by myself. Somebody-
It's
Oh
like
my God.
obvious that you guys.
Fourth of July, that's the same, Gillette Hassel, you're watching across the. And Market.
By the way.
It makes a lot of money in the
Well,
wedding. The whole.
Okay. Oh, yeah, but no, well, this is after this now, yeah. we-
Okay, so if you get.
We can trickle down.
Then I'll email you, we can set up a Zoom time.
I think it's probably a good time to.
Would be rude
Yes, it would.
if they don't. If you do-
But it's
Let me go residential, those used to be rude.
With
From-
that quiet.
from the others, from the Selden Island Park.
Okay. I love all of these conversations and because of that, but it's almost 8 p.m. And thank you all for sitting here and I mean, if you all seem bored, I would have kicked you out already, but I think we're all having a good time talking about this, which is great. And so I do invite you on your way out to leave at least one thought. If you have any left, or if there's anything you want to make sure is emphasized. I've had a long day. I was rear-ended this morning. But it's all good. And please tell your neighbors that we're gonna be doing this again in 1 month. If you have any things that you think should be part of that focus of conversation, I think Mount St. John would be a good one to kind of hone in on because that's gonna be one that folks will have a lot of opinions on. But send them my way. Any of those, I can put my contact information back up here, but it's zoning@deepriverct.us. But yeah, please tell your neighbors and email me with any thoughts that you have. Yes.
So, it's hard to get people to come to these because they're not looking on the website, they're not looking in the paper. Unless we're handing out bags for the dump, we don't seem to get a big draw. Is there a way that we can use the phone system?
You know what? We have a digital sign now.
Yeah, digital sign.
Digital sign though, unless you're stopped at the light, you can't see a thing.
And most people,
Mine was on top of the field hill.
and most people are going by too fast anyway, Tom.
I was gonna say, if you're driving the right speed limit, it's easy to read.
We don't, I mean, wouldn't that be a nice system to use?
I'm putting in all my bills for the next year. Flyer that I made. people to sign up. It's alerts on an email, because I had an email blast, but it was too many receptors were getting put. I'm asking. So I think maybe we just some kind of push like that. So I was thinking of doing like a post.
Because it's unfortunate that we don't get people in this type of format. They just come out when they hear something's gonna happen and then they all piss them off.
Right.
We had quite a few the first time round. We just.
Because I think they thought something, you guys were trying to pull something. I really believe.
But tell them that.
No, it's built on the human spirit.
For the town.
I've lived in this town 15 years and I've yet to meet a resident that doesn't tell me what this town
Those of
needs.
us that are in this world.
Everyone I've met, 15 years. Right now, I just go over to Red House, see one of our neighbors and be like, yeah, we just had this. And they will say,
Just
you know
say,
what you
we're
need.
gonna have a community.
I hope they talked about this.
Future of our town.
We just gotta get 'em here.
Something as simple as that, because when you start bringing in these acronyms that most people don't know what they are, why would they come?
That's a good
You have to get the map out there. So if Carol can take a picture of the map, put it in her newsletter, and say, where do you live? What do you zone?
To the choir.
I know.
Just people that have
But the
signed
thing
up.
is asking for the, asking the questions so they start to think.
Right, and I think your newsletter, I mean, everybody freaking reads.
Valley Courier sorts those away.
Who are we missing in that? I think you guys, maybe never talk about
I
it.
put it in there. I put it in all the time.
I'm just.
It has to have a little controversy, like we're bringing the Deep River Inn back, where are we gonna put it? And then that goes out there and they start talking about it, we're gonna be in the park. And now everyone in this town
We
comes.
would get up and get out of here.
That was funny, because I wasn't gonna check
Oh,
time.
definitely.
There you go. So yeah. We're entertaining a contract, it's good, but I think those older people now look at. She said something, I'm like, oh, yeah, I know, this is what I think about that. So now we're throwing, it's that big.
This was way better than I thought it was gonna
Yes.
be.
To me, blocks are great for you guys to have as takeaways, but they're not interactive. Interactive is this.
They didn't tell you. you
This
needed
is just in case.
I get it.
This is what I would do.
Either we'll get you or.
The problem with this on top is now no one can see what's already there. Yeah, and I'm gonna make Jacob and yeah.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
mine,
And I'm like, I'm
We turn the spotlight on the bed.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They did say it.
It's not people up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Residents.
I will put my email back up.
We gotta adjourn this.
No, not just the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Just some places, but there's like a rack and it's just when the people live on the street.
That's right.
Yeah,
So what-
What's left on that, you know?
So my.
Good job, guys.
There's a lot of people on here. No, there's 7 people on here.
My wife, they die. We both phone rooms.
That's good news.
Shit,
And
Bobby.
now, it's like, hey, anyway, this is where they'll be some dads.
Oh, no, it's great. Yeah, all I was afraid of, because I guess it was just for the people who live around.
So
We find out
they
if
let
they're
RV
having-
So they can go, these good beans. It's actually, it's pretty damn. You look in there and it's, oh, and then they took it to the people, this little- looking for one now. You talk to an island. Yeah. It's the same, bro. You look at.
Thank you.
it.
I don't need this.
That's one less for me to program. I like my fire. That's what we did. use it all the
I'll find
time.
some pictures out of there now, but I'll clear them and show you.
That's a good idea. We should do that fire. Then I had people. Kids would build it, leave it, shop fires.
And they're remodeling. They're remodeling.
But we would use it more as a kayaks, that was like crowded in the summer and then. We no
So
longer.
this is what you propose. Society.
But we have kayaks and we don't want to put them there. It's too crowded and then you. I don't think. Leave one there, that would be.
Are you in first meeting yet?
There's.
Oh, no, I'm gonna look at that. I'm not for
Today,
that.
I'm
Just so I can turn off the recording.
I gotta do.
It's adjourned. It's at 7:54 PM. Come help us.
Okay, then there was something else that came out of this. I know, because I worked in Singapore about it. It was.
Oh, look like mine.
Big.
So.
There was a.
Because then there'll be a topic to
Explain things.
buried, and then I have to go.
No,
People's names, because then I go, wait, I never responded.
This is good.
And
And I read it through.
Sit up yelling.
Because
We don't use that. We don't.
You know what I mean? And-
But, you know,
People,
I think people need to
younger-
understand this.